Hey guys, it's Angel. Welcome back to the channel, and today we are flying out of Bella Coola in beautiful, crisp winter British Columbia. Now, we're taking an interesting trip today in a modified 172. This is by Bagley, the guy who did the float, tundra tires and other variants of the same aircraft. Now this one's special because it's Angler Attack's aircraft, which is November 2423 uniform, which is his actual plane. Now Chris is a YouTuber and has a channel there, of course. He wanted his made, and honestly, I kind of like it because it is the sort of plane you would see in more kind of rugged areas. The main nose wheel shock has been beefed up a little bit, which is going to keep my prop a little bit further away from the ground, which in rougher airports is useful. Now, we're flying out of Bella Coola today, which is the Orbex airport, and we're flying to Dean River, which is just up the valleys. Not long, but in, let's say, roleplay terms, would be taking something delivered here to Bella Coola, which is a slightly bigger airport, up to that smaller strip. And probably some of the aircraft flying in here would be able to do the same to there, but let's just say it's a small package or something. As whoa, hello. I'm also using my Grass Monkey Simulations Puck right now, which is my head tracking system. Getting much more used to this, and hopefully we're going to have a fun flight today. So, let's turn on our systems here, and make sure we get ourselves started up properly for today's flight. There we go. Fuel system in. Okay, let's get pitot heat on because of this weather. And we're going to want our fuel pump on as well. So, mixture is good. Throttle is cracked. Brakes are set to parking. Clip up. I do like how he actually added that effect in of Chris, Angler Attack, actually yelling clear in the startup sequence. That's really cool. You can get this on Flight Sim TO, by the way. I will link to that in the description as always. Okay, we are ready to rock and roll here. Okay, throttle's idle. Let's make sure our transponder is set. There we go. Good to go. Okay, so, of course, this is as usual screwed up. You have to put up with me doing this for a second. I want to make sure I get this right first off. And it's Y. Come on. I always hate trying to work out where it wants me to actually put this. There we go. Y-R-D. Nice and simple, right? You'd think so. Dean River, there we go. Bingo. So that is us set there. We're going to follow the valleys here, which is out and around to the right, so it's not too difficult a job for us today. So, looking good there. Looking good there. Tell me what you think about the actual head tracking in videos, by the way, and whether or not you think this is something you want to see more of. I love it for my personal flying now. I've really gotten comfortable with this, and I really, really like it. I have to give it a bit of goose here to get us moving. I always love how they never get out of my way. It's always fun. Okay, also hard to see taxiways in this weather. We're using Weather's Preset Pro's cool and crisp weather, by the way. So we're looking at 45 knot winds on the ground, and about... Right now, unlimited visibility with basically a nice, crisp, snowy day. I'm not expecting any weather flurries, so it should be easy enough. Okay, flaps set for takeoff. Good to go. So this is just a regular old 172, but of course it is, as my head tracking gets very confused as to where my head is for a second, which it does when you turn your head past various things. We're looking clear there. Okay, let's get ourselves on the runway and get out of here. Now, it's not a long flight, but it'll take a little longer than the direct path, which is over those mountains, which, I don't know about you, but I don't particularly fancy going over today. Let's lean up a little bit there, get ourselves out into the runway proper. Okay, and we're going for takeoff. So I need to keep my eyes on where we are, because it's hard to see the edge with the snow on the deck. And we've picked up a lot of that early wind, nice and easy. And you'll see there the river beside Bella Coola here looking very, very crisp. Don't want to be in that water in this weather. I do love seeing the winter textures, of course, in the world of flight sim. It always makes things a lot prettier and much more visually pleasing. Let's get my trim set here for takeoff, or for climb out at least. Now, we're going to be heading up and around the valley, which should be a fairly easy little trip. We're navigating in the classic way of take a right here, which is simple. Never been into Dean River though, so this will be an experiment for us. I don't really know what to expect as we get there, so a nice steady climb out. I'll try and maintain about 80 knots once I get the nose down a little bit. Go for a fast climb. A lot of valley ahead of us, and we're not really going to have to climb too high. We're staying about, you know, above the water level, so between the mountains is absolutely fine. We'll take it up another 500 feet or so to about 2,000, and we'll cap it off there. But no, I'm getting very used to the head tracking system. Obviously, you can tune the profile to your preference and have more turn or less turn. I'm going to have to try and work out something that's a little twitchier so I can turn more without moving my head, because I need to be able to still look at the microphone. Which is the downside as a YouTuber of recording anything using head tracking, because you're moving around quite a bit and sound likes to come at you from the same direction as I turn all the way over there, so you can't hear me properly. On purpose, of course, this time. Now, I was actually thinking of doing a flight with Dijing's Vans R7, because he's released a new version with the 7A, which is the tricycle gear variant, and I'm in love with that thing. But having flown that recently with head tracking, I thought, let's take out what is essentially the stock 172 from the Premium Deluxe Edition. Okay, we're looking good there. Let's pull the power back and set ourselves up here for cruise. Nice rapid cruise today, about 2,400 on the RPM we'll go for. Let's put my yoke back on. It always feels weird not having the yoke on, and my fuel pump's still on, which is... Did that turn on? That's turned on. Okay, fantastic. So we're going to stick about 2,000 feet here. It's not going to be a big problem for us. And we'll head out here, and we'll take a head around and up the valley, which should just be over there. I must say, it is... I keep wanting to go to my hat switch on my yoke and use that to navigate visually, but I'm so used to doing this. I'm pretty good with it, to be honest. I can look anywhere I like, but I'm so used to doing it that way. It's so hard to break the habit. Okay, we're going that way around here, so... Where am I? I think I am. Yeah, no, we are. Should be easy enough. Unless I'm not. No, wrong button. There we go. No, we're going out here a bit actually. I was jumping the gun there. Okay, so we actually are heading this way. It might be a little bit longer than I thought, so we may take a shortcut as we go to get there. Now to see what the mountains allow us to do. But I'm guessing that way would not be optimal. I'm not too familiar with what the terrain is like in this vicinity here, so as I'm just dropped to altitude, we'll try and get that back a little bit. Climb back up again. Gotta say, British Columbia is one of my favourite places to fly. Always has been, always will be. The scenery is breathtaking. The scope of this world is just insane. And covered in snow, it's just so pretty. So that'll be us up ahead there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to climb a little bit further. And we'll try and cut off that headland just up ahead of us, allowing us to turn a little bit more sharply than we normally would, rather than fully following the valley. Should save us some time. Weather's very relaxed today, so not going to be worrying about that. I'm just more worrying about my engine's performance as we get higher, because especially with it being cold, which is usually better, air's more dense, but that should allow me to go a little bit higher than normal. No significant cloud to worry about in terms of icing conditions, but very cold dense air is something to be considered, at least. What's that over there? I can't quite see. Either way. Now, I worry if this head tracking is distracting to you, the viewer. You know, are you wanting to see more of the more stable viewpoints you get from my hat switch work, which is, I might point out, rather good? Or do you like having this more free-moving head appearance? Is it distracting? Is it a little difficult on the eyes? It's always hard to tell from the viewer's perspective what they actually want to see here. Again, not a particularly crazy flight for this one, but it's a place I've not been to yet, so it does bring its challenges. I'm aware of what the runway has for us, but not quite sure what the approach is going to be like or what the terrain around it will be. So we'll maintain about a 600, maybe 700 feet a minute climb. We'll chop this headland off here and we'll cut around, bringing us back onto track without having to go fully across the valley. Down to the right there is the way down towards Moe Creek and towards the McMell Fisheries area we've flown to in the past. So it's a travelled area heading out of Bella Coola, but not one that I've used in too many different routes before. Now, I do want to do some wintry stuff, of course, with this being December, being peak festive season, so snow is very much du jour. But I think we'll be taking some trips south in the next couple of weeks to some nice warm places where we can feel a little bit less cold. Because right now it's not super cold in the UK, but it's not warm either, so it does have its own drawbacks in that regard. Okay, so we should be able to cut across this segment here as we climb up. Let's bring the engine power back down. We'll keep it at 2500 while we climb, just so we aren't burning it out too much. Now, there's a couple of aircraft coming soon I'm very excited about, and some very interesting developments from that side of things. It's going to be a very exciting couple of weeks. I know a lot of developers have finally got their heads around Sim Update 7 and what to work around with that. It's definitely made things unusual, but it's always fun how they manage to make some big herp derps with these features. Definitely making things a bit more challenging for the developers, but they seem to be finding their route. Coronado may eventually release the storied 337, fabled even actually at this point in time, because it may never come, but who knows. Aerosoft, I believe, have pushed back the Twin Otter quite a bit, and that's probably meaning Milviz's ATR have as well. I don't know whether they're waiting for the next sim update, the one that was meant to have the turboprop modelling in it, because I don't think this one did. But I know it's affected prop behaviour on a lot of aircraft, so it's definitely changed how good they can be. Okay, so we should be turning north here. Heading into some uncharted territory here inland. Passing 4,000 feet, which should be enough. We're going to keep our eyes on 12 o'clock here. That valley just ahead of us, between those peaks, will be a nice, easy way to get past that section without us having to go too far around it off our route. Because what I thought would be a nice, easy route down there, taking us round this whole section, might add another 30 minutes to the trip, which nobody really wants to deal with. So we'll do some impromptu cross-country here in the mountains, and we're going to try and keep ourselves further away. Drafts, downdrafts and such, and updrafts in cold weather will be a lot worse. The more dense air will pack more of a punch. So that's something to concern yourself with in terms of winter flying around mountainous terrain, is it can be a lot more persuasive. That's why you get a lot more plane crashes in the winter as well. Not just stronger weather, less visibility, and I move my head a lot when I'm talking, which can get really, 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 really distracting. So I'll endeavour to keep my head robotically smooth. But when you have got the wind blowing, it's moving more dense air, so it will have more of an impact on the aircraft. So we're going to try and keep ourselves away from too many different surfaces here. Looking good so far. Beautiful snow-covered peaks here. There is something truly magical about seeing this sort of terrain. I love it. Let's take a look outside here. It's always fun to use the head tracking outside. Look at this valley. Pristine, untouched wilderness. No people down there. No roads, no cars, no nothing. Just forest and mountainside. It is breathtaking. I love this thing. It's even got the more loved livery on it of Chris's plane. November 2423 uniform. Oh, there we go. Right, let's get our heads back in the cockpit here as we've been climbing a bit more severely than we'd wanted to. Take a quick look on our GPS head, which is another trickier thing with head tracking. Okay, we're going in a good direction. We'll actually turn it right here, and we'll shoot for this pass over here, which takes us actually more on course with where we're trying to get to. Passing through 5,000, so I'm going to start just easing back my mixture here. Probably should have done it a minute ago when we were a little bit lower, but... Where's my EGT? Okay. Keep the power somewhat constant here. We're now heading on track, and we should pop out just behind Dean River to our north. Big mountain to get across here. It's one of those things, you either follow the valleys around this area or you can find the routes through various places, but when you're in uncharted territory, it's always good to do it with a budget of altitude, because if you're not familiar with what your aircraft can do or the terrain, you could end up in a sticky situation. If you're too low and you end up in too tight a valley, you can end up running out of airspace because you won't be able to climb out of it. You may not be able to turn around unless you turn around soon enough. And learning to read those valleys and what you can actually get away with is a huge part of this kind of flying. It may seem like regular or GA flying, but there are a lot of concerns to remember. Noted that if you do pick the wrong valley, you can end up in serious trouble. Okay, dropping across here, and we should be able to drop back down to the water and take a right and follow that down towards Dean River. I mean, this does really feel much more natural using the head tracking, and it's very smooth. Once you get used to it, it becomes a much more harmonic system, if you will. Because now I'm just looking around like I really would. Look at that wonderful scene, Masobo. Ah, satellite imagery. Part of me loves it, part of me hates it. It's hard to really say. But they've done a decent job with this, especially with the autogen and how well that works. It really makes a big difference. Okay, so we're about 20 miles out, which isn't going to take us too long at this rate. I'm getting a good 120 knots or so right now. 125 over the ground according to the GPS. A couple of clicks of trim there. We're doing good so far. In fact, we can start descending here, reducing power. Still maintaining a good airspeed. If I stay on my course now for a little bit till we cross this crest ahead of us, that will give us a bit of room to maneuver here. So, trying to stay away from too many of these ridge lines in this weather. Great gliding weather for that very, very reason. It's a bit cold for icing, which is good. With no recent snowfall, we're not worrying about any build-up on the wings before we took off. Of course, in aircraft like this with no anti-icing capabilities, you should be afraid of those conditions. They could be bad for you. Let's cut across this plateau to our right here. Should be nice and easy. For those of you who haven't checked out, by the way, Anglo Attack's YouTube channel is one I watch pretty regularly, and he has some fantastic flying videos on there. Really great stuff. Always good for a view. I'll link his channel in the description, of course, and I'll link to this aircraft. Now, Bella Coola, where we took off from, that is an Orbex airport, and it's one of the ones I really recommend getting. I do a lot of my testing out of that one, and Orcas Island as well. I never thought I'd be a big Pacific Northwest fan. I never really flew out to most of those airports in FSX. In fact, I didn't buy Orbex airports in FSX. What is that? Is that one solitary little tree down there on that ridge? That is. Oh, hello, lonely little tree. Hi there, buddy. Aw. What did I say about not getting too close to the terrain? Okay, let's get out of here and pick our battles. That should be us ahead of us here, so I can start powering down and descending. Not too much, though. We do want to keep some warmth in the engine. But in FSX, I didn't use, in P3D, I didn't use the Orbex airports. I think I had one or two of them, and I didn't want to get the others because I found such horrible performance hits with them that made flying out of them intolerable. They were beautiful, and they are identical to the ones they've got here in Fire Sim. But they just slowed the sim down so hard. I don't know how people could use them so much. But, you know what? In this sim, there's no impact from them, and they look stunning. There's the fjord below us. And our destination should be ahead of us on that little plateau over there. If I'm correct, we should be looking for this. Roughly. Yes, thank you. Yoke visibility. Wonderful. That's exactly what I wanted to know. Let's drop it down here a little bit. Take advantage of the altitude we have. Just to wind ourselves down. 14 miles out. So that looks about appropriate for where we should be heading. We'll have to overfly this. I've never been here before. So, this is a blind arrival. Trying to use the GPS systems, though, in the head tracking is a little harder. Yep, I have no idea what I'm doing. We'll just stick with this. It could get very messy very fast. Okay, so let's put some power on here as we descend now over the lake. Increase our mixture. We need that back. And this should... It might be this ahead. It might not be. I could be wrong. I think it might just be ahead of us around the corner. Because according to this, we are 12 nautical miles out. And that doesn't look like 12 miles. So 6 minutes is our ballpark here. And we should be on target. Very desolate terrain here. A bit like the area we just crossed. We have the fjord, but there's no signs of life. This is very remote territory. Then again, a lot of this northern part of BC is. You're dealing with areas where there'll be towns with not much in between them. And we're on the coast here, so we're not in the interior where there's quite a lot actually further up. And you've got the various lakes and towns, and you've got highways and logging areas. So there's lots of transit areas here. You've got seaplane bases, you've got small settlements and towns, you've got the occasional road. But in general, it's airports and planes and boats, ferries and things like that. I've got to take you guys to Campbell Island at some point. That is one of my all-time favourite locations. Everyone has their home base in Flight Sim, and mine was Campbell Island. In fact, I named my little pretend bush company after it, Campbell Aviation. Out by Denny Island and Campbell Island, it's Bella. A beautiful little town off the coast. In fact, it's just west of here, actually. About a 70-mile flight from Bella Coola. We'll have to go there one day. Maybe that's a good option for the vans, although something feels wrong about flying a kit plane, a fast kit plane in British Columbia. Yeah, so I'm thinking we're around this corner here, so I'm just going to cut this off by going a little bit left. Make our life a little simpler. Increase the power a little bit here. Still descending somewhat, so we could afford to budget some airspeed. That should be us in the distance there. Now this water is not something you want to go into, of course. This is very cold. If it's snowy on the ground around it, this is going to be ice cold. You're talking minutes to live in this sort of water. And considering I don't have really any other options around here in terms of landing safely in an emergency on land because of all the trees, the water would be my best option, which is a concern. I mean, there are some valleys where I could maybe find some space. That one over there has got a small river in it, but that could be more dangerous. There aren't really any beaches here because these fjords are a glacial. In fact, that says right ahead there. The plateau just over there is Dean River. That's the one we're looking for. So these areas are very glacially driven in terms of how they're created, which means these valleys, where the water is, it's just the same profile of terrain all around it. So you see how this drops down like that? Imagine the profile of this valley being like that. It's very deep, very fast. So you don't really get much beach because you don't have a coastal plain, really, or the same kind of fluvial processes that created this area. Because it wasn't created by fluvial processes, it was ice-driven. So, as you'll see here, look at that profile there. That's where it will continue underwater. This is why you'll find in the fjords of Norway, a lot of ships that have been sunk in the Second World War are hard to find because they're so deep. And like this, it'll go down straight like that, and it'll go down, and it'll round out at the bottom and come back up again. And it'll be more round than pointed, where you'll get pointed with typically water-created valleys. You'll get very flat-bottomed valleys created by ice, but it'll be very, very sharp-sided, which makes things a lot more tricky. Okay, so we're about 5 miles away now, so we're going to get ourselves set up here to take a quick look at Dean River and work out what we're dealing with. I need to locate the airfield, which of course, thanks to this sim being a lot more realistic, is nothing like it was in the old days of FSX, where you could see a great big square, white in the snow or green in all other times of airport, unless you had an add-on. Here, I'm going to have to find this thing, and it might be difficult, especially with snow on the ground. But from the maps I looked at, it should be roughly here. That's what I'm expecting. So I'm going to go more to the right here, which should let me look out the window and try and locate the airfield. God, that water looks so deep. Okay. A few clicks of trim. We'll slow ourselves down a little bit here, so we're in a reasonably good position. Now, winds, I checked beforehand, we're looking to the north, so this is going to be our approach direction based on where we find the runway. So it's about 4 to 5 knots from the north, which makes sense because the valley will be directing the wind. So typically, the only wind you'll really get will be from this way or this way, which is why people typically build runways in the same direction as the valley, because it's going to be the predominant wind direction. So we have the river just there, and the airport should be on our... Is that it? 12 o'clock? I think I see something there, 12 o'clock. Yeah, right there. Right here. That's looking like Dean River. YRD. Yard. Okay, let's swing it around to the right here. We're going to have to worry about the mountain behind it. Okay, power off. Let's take it down and take a look here. Got the river winding in behind us. A lot of trees, so that could make things a bit more interesting. God, look at that terrain. Yeah, rudder. There you go. See? Look at that beautiful valley. Okay, rudder back normal. My airplanes hate me. Okay, so there's a good low approach there with no obstructions to the north, but we are flying... That would be tailwind, so that's not ideal. And quite a tight approach there. Not the end of the world, but a tight approach. So we're coming over the trees. And we have what looks to be a cut-down approach here on the path, leading in. Let's pull the power off here so we can get a good look. Rudder a bit to the right so we can kind of keep the aircraft pointed in a way I can see. Give it a notch of flaps so we can just fly a little bit slower here. Okay, so we've got a decently shallow approach there. You'll note how the trees are a lot shorter on the approach path. They do seem to be shorter than the surrounding terrain, although I don't really want to get into a valley of trees. Break down to bushes there. And then we get the runway proper. So that should give us an opportunity to come in here easier. And that, it looks like gravel, covered in snow, not cleared. So we're going to have to worry about traction. Okay. Okay. We can do this. let's take a loop around here and set ourselves up for an approach. Flaps in. Climb power. Mixture full rich as well now. Let's drop the nose down. Okay. It's very wide too. That should do us just fine. Okay, so we'll go past that lump in the headland there, and we'll turn ourselves in for base. Should do us just fine. Right into the sun here. That's going to be awkward as we turn. Head on into the sun. Blinding flying conditions, but at least we'll be landing out of the sun as well. So that's also something to consider. If the wind is light, you may want to land with the tailwind because it's going to be preferable to landing into this. Winter sun, the further north you go, can become a real problem. Like, I would not want to land into this. This would be really bad. Really hard to see anything, and therefore, you can make more mistakes. Can't make out the field because of the trees. We'll take it a little bit further so we've got time to set up for a stabilized final. No, I can't even see it. Not even slightly. God, that's oppressive on my eyes. Okay, flaps 1. Now, we're going to take this as a soft field landing, and we're also going to try and understand we're not going to have as much traction on landing too. So we're going to want to keep the nose high as long as we can, and let it down soft. Okay, we're going to turn in here. Watching our speed. Okay. We're low here, actually. We're quite low. Power on for the turn so we don't lose any of that performance. And we should get runway in sight. Oh, God. There it is. Okay, I see it. We're actually turned shallow. Well, let's turn it here. We'll be okay. We turned a little bit shallow. Flaps 2. Okay, we have it. Let's lean up a little bit here. See, this is preferable for landing. We haven't got that sun in our eyes. More power. Let's keep us aloft a little bit more. Okay, nice. We can chop that now because we're going to use that to descend us in. That valley in the trees will be useful here because we're going to want to get as much as we can. Little bit quick, but it's not imperfect. Remember to hold the nose up as we come in. I can't even see where the runway edges are. Prepare to pull those flaps in as we touch down. Flaps in. You have to do it earlier with electronic flaps. They take longer to retract. Let the nose down and gently apply braking force. Gently. And we are down. Okay, that was nowhere near as hard as I thought it would be. But this surface is literally just snow. I had no idea where the runway itself is. And oh my god, that's blinding. Whew. That is fun. With this being based on a sober aircraft, can't even pull those sunshades down, which would be nice. Whew, okay. That worked out rather nicely, I think. But that also gives you an appreciation of wanting to make a unproven surface, untrusted surface, soft field approach when you've not got a lot of traction. The reason why I pull the flaps up on landing, by the way, and why you should do that in soft field landings and bush landings, is because your flaps are a source of lift. Those flaps will basically lead to you being lighter. Now, the more weight you have on your wheels, the more they'll grip. So more friction generated, therefore you can brake easier. Which means that you really do want to have your flaps up as soon as possible once you're landed to not only kill lift and put more weight on those wheels, but to also then actually give the aircraft the ability to really bite. Now I'm pretty sure as soon as I kill this engine it's going to pop up the stupid menu, so I'm not going to turn the battery off. But we can do that at least, and take a little look outside as I click on all the buttons at once. Oh, there's a little cabin over there. So we were kind of parked in the right place-ish, kind of on the grass verge, but yeah, that approach path was useful with the cut down trees. It's always good to do a recce if you're not sure. Yeah, here would be the buildings from the airfield. Just two shacks in the woods. And I don't even know where Dean River itself is, unless it's just access to the Dean River for fishing trips and things and expeditions, which in most actuality it probably is, because there's no settlement around here or village. Yeah, it's likely just going to be this really very minimally staffed, or at least functional, airstrip to access the fishing areas over there. So hopefully you guys had a good flight with me today and you enjoyed this little trip up into the very wintry north. Alaska may be off for a little bit because it's really dark most of the time right now up there, so it makes for kind of poor flying, but god, this is stunning scenery, isn't it? Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.